Meantime, a new state law now getting put into practice with schools going back into session. Classes for middle school and high school students, middle school students not be able to start until after 8 a.m., after 8:30 for high school students. The law is designed to keep more students awake and focused during class, but not all parents are happy with the change. Joining us now is Joy Wake, Policy and Advocacy Director for Start School Later. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what have you seen from studies that would support the later start times? Is there a benefit here, you think?
Oh, yes. In fact, this law is based on over 30 years of scientific and medical research. It really puts the health and safety of California teenagers first. So sleep is essential for health and well-being, yet most teenagers simply aren't getting enough of it. And there's two main reasons. And the first is their own biology. We know that teenagers have brains that are different than ours. They're different than older adults, and they're different than younger kids. When they reach puberty, the sleep-inducing hormone melatonin, that is also called the darkness hormone that helps us to fall asleep, that doesn't kick in teenagers' brains till 2 or 3 hours later at night. So it makes it really difficult for most teens to fall asleep until around 11 p.m. or later. So since they need about 9 hours of sleep a night, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, if you are forcing them to get up really early for, say, a 7 o'clock or 8 a.m. bell time, it literally deprives them of sleep.
And many parents are not happy with the change. Others feel like it's an added burden for working class families. What help is there for working parents who may have to leave kids home alone or take them to school a little bit earlier than the first bell?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember that this is to improve the health and well-being of teenagers. If kids don't get enough sleep, they are more likely to be suicidal, to be depressed, suffer from anxiety, get in car accidents, and do poorly in school. So most parents, when you ask them whose priority should be first, they say do what's best for kids. Now, I really sympathize with parents who are challenged by their kids' work schedule. I had the same challenges when my 3 kids were in school. It's also helpful to understand that this has been done before, that a lot of schools have started at 8:30 or 8 for years without issue. It's just that the change can be challenging, and the transition might be challenging, but it will be temporary. But the health benefits to the kids are going to be permanent. Now, having said that, there are lots of different time schedules in California. In your newsroom, you have people who work an early shift and you have people who work a late shift. And many parents are rejoicing at this because it is more convenient for their later schedule. Maybe they work in hospitality or restaurants or something like that. Now, when it comes to resources for parents who are inconvenienced, because there always will be parents who are inconvenienced no matter what time school starts, whether it's 7 a.m. or 9 a.m. But what schools are doing for parents who need to drop their kids off early are they're leaving a library open, a quiet place to study or even doze, a cafeteria, they might serve breakfast, and optional zero periods are also possible. So I would suggest that if you're having a challenge, talk to your school about it and tell them what you will need to make this work for you and your family.
It makes me think about all those schools, of course, that have zero period and high schoolers that would be getting ready for class, before sunrise, which is kind of an interesting thought. So to follow up here, are schools adjusting, any insight to adjusting their dismissal times to spend about the same amount of time in the classroom? Is there any consensus there with what they're doing?
That's a really great question. Right now, the state has not adjusted its instructional minutes. They're still required to do the same amount of minutes. Schools have built in a lot of leeway. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of leeway. There's a significant amount of leeway that schools do have built into their schedule. So they're adjusting. So schools typically might get out around 3:30 is what I've heard of for high school. For middle school, the change of 8 a.m. is really not that significant. It's really just to protect middle schoolers from the most egregiously early times. But 8 a.m. isn't that much of a change for most students.
All right, Joy Wake, it's an interesting discussion that, of course, affects and impacts so many families across the state. So we appreciate you joining us and discussing this morning.
Happy to be here.